So I really got to say that the marketing behind this show was pretty brilliant. I had only ever heard of this show leading up to it coming out by like a huge guerrilla marketing on TikTok. It seemed like every single ad that I saw and every single sponsored post that I saw for the month leading up to the bear releasing was about the bear. And it didn't really tell you much about the show except that it was about cooking and it starred Jeremy Allan White, which I'm a huge Shameless fan, and Lip was always my favorite from that show, and I'm pretty sure he's like everybody's favorite from that show because Jeremy Allan White is fucking awesome.
This is what happens when you miss an episode of Shameless. Your entire life goes completely to shit.
And I have a huge history of kitchens. Until the last couple years, I spent my entire professional career working in kitchens, and at one point I even managed a couple restaurants. So the day this released, I was on this, and then it took me a while to watch it. It's phenomenal, but it hits so hard and it's so difficult to watch at times that I could only limit myself to like an episode at a time. So buckle in, because I want to talk about why this show is amazing, why you need to watch it, but why it is so difficult to watch sometimes. The Bear has one of the best elevator pitches I have ever personally seen from a TV show. It is super simple, but very amazing. A rock star, international, world-renowned chef that is running one of the best restaurants, often called the best restaurant in the world, has to return home to take over his brother's sandwich shop in Southside Chicago after his brother passes away. The sandwich shop itself is struggling very bad, and it has a mismatched crew of misfits running it, and nobody there likes that he is now in charge, and he has to bring it up from destitute, not only using his skills growing up, but also using his skills that he found as this world-renowned chef while recovering his roots. And there's so much more to it that I'm going to get into. But that in itself is a phenomenal pitch and a super simple synopsis to hook you in for this show.
I have every intention of turning this into a respectable place of business. Eventually.
So the very first 2 episodes of The Bear are actually very depressing. Like, there's no other better term for it. It's downright gut-wrenching depressing. And I watched the first episode and then I was like, okay, I'll watch the second episode tomorrow. And then I watched like part of the second episode and I was like, maybe I'll finish watching it in the morning. And that's what I kept doing throughout a lot of this show. But the first 2 episodes really touches on the difficulty that Carmen, the main character of this show that takes over the restaurant from his deceased brother, which by the way is played by cameos by John Barenthal, so that's fucking cool. But it deals with the difficulties of him taking over this crumbling restaurant and the difficulties he had by pursuing being a professional chef and one of the best in the world, but ending up hating it and hating himself. And then when he takes this over, nobody wants him there. Everybody's like, get the fuck out. This is not your restaurant. Especially his older brother's best friend, Richie.
I was running it fine without you.
Why didn't you leave it to you then?
Who they call each other cousin about 8,000 times in this show. Richie hates him. He's like, this should be my restaurant. You're doing this wrong. But Richie is kind of a jack off, screw off, doesn't really want to work, just wants to be there to hang out and shoot the shit.
Yo, this dude is trying to fuck up this little nerd, and this fucking nerd just washes him, bro.
But on a deeper level, he does care about this restaurant, but he doesn't know how to go about actually running this place. But beyond that, the restaurant itself is destitute, basically. Like, they get a C rating on the health inspection, barely. This place has not been cleaned in what seems like years at a time. Unbelievable money problems. They're like $300,000 in the hole. And Carmi's older brother like never kept record of anything, but was also part of like drug deals and under the table deals that Carmen can't figure out, but also does not want to do because he's trying to run this place legit. And I will admit, the plot for this show is very straightforward. It's a great plot. It hooks you immediately, and it makes you want to go out and find the show to watch it, as is obvious by the fact that I saw just TikToks of this that came running on day 1 to check it out. But it is also a very obvious plot. You know exactly where it's going from the beginning. It's like an age-old story, just kind of rewrapped in a different way. Outsider, fish out of water, comes in, tries to take over a place, make it run right, tries to take a band of misfits and bring them up to what they can actually achieve because they are underachieving for how good they could be. They hate him, but by the end, they all love each other and they're one happy family, and the place that they are trying to run succeeds. That is the plot broken down to its most basic elements. And that is exactly how it plays out. That is exactly how you see it playing out from the very beginning. It's not surprising, but it is executed perfectly and masterfully. Now I want to talk about the kitchen staff for a second. I already told you about Carmen, played by Jeremy Allan White, the main character. I told you about Richie, the jack-off, screw-off best friend of his older brother that is trying to find his way. And yeah, by the end, him and Carmen find their way together and they work out how to work harmoniously together. They find that there's strengths that Carmen has that Richie needs in his life, and there's strengths that Richie has that Carmen needs in order to run this kitchen and run this restaurant properly. Richie is really good at the front of the house. He's very charismatic and energetic, and he knows how to talk to people, and he knows the general public, something that Carmen doesn't, so he realizes he needs him there. But I want to talk about some of the other B characters, the side characters, and the first one I want to touch on is Sydney.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
I'm Sydney.
Sydney is the sous chef that comes in almost on day one of Carmen taking over this kitchen. She's very young and classically trained to be a chef and has looked up to him ever since she started cooking. At one point, she had a failed catering business that put her in massive amounts of debt and has given her terrible anxiety and difficulty sleeping. And Carmen kind of takes her under his wing, but she is pushing everybody else in this kitchen to change to the new ways. Obviously, people are pushing back because she is this new young girl coming into their domain. But her and Carmen butt heads a lot, even though they are very close, because she wants more recognition. She wants him to look at her and be like, you are an amazing cook, an amazing chef, let's do things your way. But he's not really willing to bend on his vision for this restaurant. And eventually it comes to a blow, and I will get to that later on in this video. Then you have Marcus, the baker of the restaurant that makes the cakes and the donuts and all like that. And I love his story because basically his story is discovering his love for baking. When it first starts out, he does not even know how to properly make a loaf of bread, and Carmen has to show him. And when he sees that he can do that, he devotes all of his time and energy to making perfect cakes, perfect donuts, delectable, delicious things that he himself doesn't enjoy. He just wants to make this art that other people love. But it comes to a point where he is prioritizing doing that over what actually needs to be done in the restaurant to keep it going. But despite that, you still love this character because he's so earnest, and he's like the first guy in the kitchen to back Carmen up and be like, hey guys, this guy knows what he's talking about. Maybe we should listen to him.
Where are the chili flakes? Cousin organizes, it's more confusing.
Right there. Labeled chili flakes.
And one of my favorite characters that you have in this is Tina, the older lady that has been working in this kitchen for decades and has known Carmen and Richie since they were little kids. But she is bitter and the most stuck in her ways and does not want to change. She's like, I've been working in this kitchen for 20 years, motherfucker. Do not tell me how to do my way. But then later on in the series, Sydney helps her out, helps her to improve a dish that she was struggling on. And you just see this like mutual respect amongst them. It's not even that like Tina's angry that Sydney showed her the proper way. She's happy because things are finally like looking up and not just on autopilot in this kitchen, and she's growing as a cook and as a person and part of this family. And it's really beautiful. Like I think this is one of the most underrated characters in this show, honestly. And when I was talking about that everything builds to a boiling point in the second to last episode of this series, it's only about 22 minutes long. It is one really, really cool tracking shot, one steady shot this entire episode that follows in real time a 20-minute scenario of them just being overwhelmed at the opening of the restaurant for dinner rush because something has gone wrong with the printer and they're getting just a bazillion online orders. And Carmen freaks out. And when Marcus finally shows him this donut that he's been working so hard on, he crumples it and he throws it on the ground. He's like, get back to fucking work. And when Sydney is struggling on the expo line, Carmen yells at her and is like, get the fuck off my expo line. You're screwing everything up. And he's just being this major, incredible asshole, yelling at everybody, throwing things around, dropping things, blaming people for things that aren't their fault. And Sydney quits and Marcus quits.
You are an excellent chef.
What are you doing?
You are also a piece of shit.
What are you doing?
This isn't on me.
What are you doing?
Good luck.
And the episode ends by him just realizing that he fucked up so bad. That's where it cuts out and goes into the last episode of the season. But in the last episode of the season, You see him finally kind of grapple with the death of his brother, and he gets this note from his brother, and he talks about how it's very difficult to move on from his brother's suicide without a note from him or anything that tells why he did this. But in the note, he's telling him about this like family spaghetti that he needs to make, that he uses the smaller cans because they taste better. And at the very beginning of this show, the first thing that Carmen did when he took over the restaurant was he's like, we're done doing the spaghetti. Makes no fucking sense that we're doing the spaghetti. We're done with it. Everybody pushes back, especially Richie pushes back. And he's like, I don't even know why we're using these small cans of spaghetti. Use the bigger ones. This doesn't make any sense. But when he starts to make the spaghetti, it's kind of like an homage to his older brother. He dumps it out, and there's a lot of cash in there. Just like thousands of dollars of cash. So everybody in the kitchen bands together and they start dumping out all these sauce and getting thousands and thousands of dollars of cash. And Sydney comes back and they don't even like apologize to each other. They just kind of meet eyes and realize, yeah, we fucked up. Let's move forward. And the same happens with Marcus. And they take these thousands of dollars and they close down the restaurant and they probably pay off the debt. And they see him put in the window, the original beef is closing, the name of the restaurant, the bear is coming soon, and that's when it cuts out. I love this show. I think they explored the difficulties and the depths of people extremely well. I think it was an amazing depiction of a restaurant and a struggling kitchen. As somebody who's worked in a restaurant many times, the fast-paced nature of this, the heated elements where everybody's screaming at each other, but then one rushes over, they're all cool, and they share a cigarette out in the alley. The problem solving, the fact that you, like every one of these characters has like this intricate backstory that you actually care about, even though some of them you only get peeks at. It makes you understand them more, and it makes everything matter more when this tiny little person in the background in one scene has this deep story that you care about. It was a short first season. It was 8 episodes, and I think the longest episode was 44 minutes and the shortest one was 22 minutes, so I didn't get to spend a whole lot of time with it. But I'm ecstatic for coming seasons, and I really cannot wait to see where they go from here without the restaurant having the problems that it has. Maybe we get to watch them open up the bear as this brand new place in the next season. That would be awesome. But thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, check out my other videos.